Okay, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to investigate a daily crime scene. And it's a crime scene where my productivity, and probably yours too, let's be honest, goes to completely die. We all know the exact time, right? Around 2 p.m. every single day. 1 minute, you're absolutely crushing your to-do list, and the next, you're experiencing what can only be described as a full-on biological betrayal.
Picture this scenario. It's 2:15 p.m. You're staring blankly at a spreadsheet. Your eyelids suddenly weigh like 50 pounds each, and you're deeply questioning all your life choices. You're literally negotiating with yourself about whether you could sneak under your desk and fashion a makeshift pillow out of a winter coat. We've all been there. But I promise you, this isn't a lack of willpower, and it definitely isn't a personal flaw.
In fact, nearly half of all people report feeling this exact same intense afternoon tiredness, 45%. So if you're struggling to keep your eyes open during a brutal 2:30 p.m. meeting, this stat is your proof. You aren't uniquely lazy. You, my friend, are just the victim of a very well-coordinated biological hit job. Your body is doing exactly what it was wired to do. Let's jump into Section 1, Don't Blame the Burrito. Whenever that massive drowsiness hits, what do? We instantly blame our lunch choices. We completely buy into the food coma myth, thinking, oh man, I really shouldn't have eaten that massive burrito. And yeah, okay, a 900-calorie lunch is kind of like dropping a lead weight onto a sinking ship, but it's not the iceberg that actually sank you. The biological reality is that this inescapable circadian drop is going to happen even if you eat nothing but a sad handful of plain spinach. Your food is just a supporting actor here. It's not the lead villain. To really clear your name, listen to chronobiologist Timothy Monk. He points out that this post-lunch dip is a very real phenomenon that happens even when someone hasn't had any lunch at all. It's completely hardwired into human biology. It's basically an evolutionary leftover from back when our ancestors smartly decided to take shelter and nap during the absolute hottest hours of the day.
Which brings us to Section 2, the biological triple threat.
There are basically 3 biological forces acting as the real masterminds behind your mid-afternoon exhaustion, and they all converge at the exact same time. First up, adenosine. Think of adenosine as sleep pressure. Every single hour you are awake, your brain burns energy and creates adenosine as a byproduct. I kind of picture it like a neural trash can. By the early afternoon, so after 6 to 8 hours of being awake, that trash has piled up right to the brim. And that creates a crushing, totally unavoidable fatigue. Then we have culprit number 2, your circadian rhythm. Now, we all know about our 24-hour circadian rhythm, right? But your master clock doesn't just run in one smooth 24-hour wave. It actually has a 12-hour biological subcycle. Meaning, there's a literal trapdoor built right into the middle of your workday, yanking your natural alertness down between 1 and 3 p.m. Put it all together and you get the 2 p.m. triple threat. Your adenosine buildup reaches critical mass. At the same time, your 12-hour circadian rhythm hits its absolute lowest point. And to top it all off, your cortisol, which is your natural alertness hormone, completely plummets from its morning peak. Your natural alertness is dropping exactly when your sleep pressure peaks. It's a perfect biological storm, and absolutely no amount of white-knuckled willpower is going to override it. When you actually look at the data, the post-lunch dip perfectly illustrates the crime scene. Sleep pressure is overwhelmingly high, your natural alerting signal dips way down, and your brain is essentially waving a giant white flag, just begging you to surrender and lie flat on the floor. And that desperate feeling perfectly sets up Section 3, the fake caffeine fix. Because desperate times call for desperate measures, we usually stumble like complete zombies to the break room for a cup of coffee. But once you understand how caffeine actually works, you realize this is a dangerous trap. Caffeine does not magically clear the adenosine trash out of your brain. All it does is block the receptors. It's literally exactly like putting a piece of black tape over your car's check engine light. The light is hidden, sure, but the engine is still struggling, and the trash just keeps piling up in the background. Neuroscientist Dr. Andrew Huberman explains this trap so perfectly. When an afternoon coffee or energy drink finally wears off, all that accumulated sleep pressure, that massive backlog of adenosine, comes flooding into your brain's receptors all at once. The result? A spectacular crash that is honestly way, way worse than the original biological dip you were trying to fix in the first place. And to make matters worse, we have to talk about the caffeine half-life problem. That 3 p.m. rescue latte, it has a half-life of up to 7 hours, depending on your personal biology. That means at 9 or 10 p.m., when you're staring at the ceiling, desperately trying to wind down, 50% of that caffeine is still happily circulating in your system. You are actively sabotaging your deep sleep for that night, which pretty much guarantees a brutal sleep debt and an even worse biological betrayal the very next day. Talk about a vicious cycle.
All right, Section 4, hacking your afternoon energy. How do we actually fix this? So if willpower is totally useless and afternoon caffeine is just a trap, how do we negotiate with this biological hostage situation? Well, first up is a crazy effective acute intervention called the strategic caffeine nap. The steps are super simple, but timing is literally everything. You drink about 200 milligrams of caffeine right before you rest. Then you immediately set an alarm for exactly 15 to 20 minutes. You wake up right as the caffeine is kicking in. The beauty here is that the short sleep clears out the adenosine trash naturally, and the caffeine blocks whatever is left over. Plus, by keeping it under 20 minutes, you completely avoid entering deep, slow-wave sleep, so you wake up refreshed instead of feeling like a groggy mess.
Now, obviously, not everyone can just take a nap at the office. I mean, unless you have a really, really cool boss. If napping is a no-go, you've got to play the long game. Light passing through the eye is the primary way we set our brain's master clock. Getting just 10 to 15 minutes of outdoor sunlight in the morning, shortly after you wake up, is absolutely your best defense. It firmly anchors your circadian rhythm, which actually makes that 2 p.m. dip much shallower and way easier to manage. Let's pull this all together into a solid daily toolkit. Layering these evidence-based habits works like a charm. Hit the slump? Try a 10 to 20-minute NSDR, or non-sleep deep rest session. That clears adenosine without you actually having to fall asleep. Also, anchor your morning with that bright sunlight. Delay your morning coffee by 90 to 120 minutes so your body's natural cortisol can clear out the sleepiness first. Eat a lighter, protein-focused lunch so you dodge the massive blood sugar spikes. And hey, if you're stuck at your desk at 2 p.m., just go for a 10-minute brisk walk outside. You get the light exposure and the physical movement, which gently restores your dopamine and helps clear that adenosine pressure.
So what I really want you to take away from this explainer is a massive sense of relief. The afternoon slump isn't a mysterious failure of your character, and it's definitely not a sign of laziness. It is literally just your biology at work. Put down the guilt, slowly step away from that late afternoon double espresso, and start working with your body instead of stubbornly fighting against it. Now that you know you're biologically wired to crash at 2 p.m., are you going to keep fighting a losing battle tomorrow? Or are you going to use science to finally outsmart your own biology? The choice is yours.